Greetings, fellow makers. Here's a quick show and tell on the same armature that I showed before in the previous video on the topic of wrapping string and soaking it in glue. I just wanted to give you a bit more of an insight on this since the project has evolved since last time. One thing I don't remember if I mentioned, sometimes you need to stiffen a piece of PEX. This is PEX instead of PVC. It's smaller, it's more flexible for certain things. I like it for curves, and for armatures I don't need to be as strong against compression or pressure. Sometimes you need a straight line that won't flex as much, so I insert a dowel that's really tight. It's the right caliber to be tight in there and not wobble around at all. And then I can use a heat gun to relax the plastic and let it cool down so that it will be actually forced to stay straight, but I leave the dowel inside so that it provides extra strength. So strength this way, especially because of the wood grain, but also strength this way. So I will not use this with a piece of wood like this. This is hardwood, but not the hardest of hardwoods, so it would be better if it was oak, but I don't have access to those. So I don't know which hardwood it is, but it's definitely not oak. It might be maple, it might be, I don't really know what they use in general hardware store suppliers, but it's called hardwood, but it's not very hard. It's not maple at all, that's for sure. Anyways, so that's one thing you can do. I have actually built bigger structures. The fish costume that you can see on the same channel here, the Bosch fish costume, is built the same way, different shapes, but the same methods. So in this case I saved time, spent a bit more money, but I saved time for the connectors. I'll try to show you better. Let me turn on an extra light. That should help. So these black cross sections, such as here, they're covered in string right now, but there are connectors inside, the kinds of PEX connectors that are made of PEX that fit inside the pipes instead of outside. Some connectors, such as this one here, actually fit on the outside of the pipe. So yeah, this one is actually used now like a hinge for the puppet's neck to work. So I'll explain later. But these kinds of connectors actually exist to go inside the pipes, and that specific model made the connection points separate the pipes, so I had to take that into consideration and shorten my pipes after the fact so that I would keep my same measurements that I was planning. And then there's plenty of space because it's narrower on the outside of the pipes where it connects, that I could actually wrap a lot more string there and stabilize and stiffen it at the same time with the string that I keep soaking in glue as I wrap. Eventually every layer of string approximately gets another coat of glue. It takes overnight in front of a fan to dry properly, but when it's really stabilized, it's really strong. Another tip here that I liked is for these straps that will hold the structure onto a person. If they want to control the width, the positioning of these straps, they can just undo a screw. There's only a single screw on each of these stand pieces of warbler that are wrapped around the pipe here, and before they stabilized, I made sure to rotate the warbler to make sure it wasn't sticking permanently to the plastic. So now what I can do is remove one screw, just that one screw on each piece, and just slide it sideways for the new positioning. They can just screw it in place wherever they want, so it's not something complicated to adjust, because it's not in my town. This is going to be delivered to another town. I'm not going to be available to be there in person to change things once it's delivered, so once they come and pick it up. Another thing is useful to know is this whole structure is a torso. This is where the neck's going to come out. I have a mock-up here of a type of system I could use for the neck. That's more like this. This is the spine, this is the front, and it would be able to bend on itself like this. But I'm not sure this is what I'm gonna end up using. But I am sure that the head is working just like I planned, but better. It fits the dowel, the fat dowel fits into the connector I just showed you, and it allows it to turn sideways and up and down. But that sideways is a bit problematic when the actual puppet head is on top, which is here. It's foam and Warbler and latex. Latex is for the mouth because it's a sculpture. But because it's a rein, just like a real horse, it's got reins and bridle. Because of the connection point that attaches to the head, that is not the same as the pivot point, or not close enough to it, it becomes a bit of a hesitant movement. So for most times, there's a pin at the bottom that goes through the connector, the plastic connector, and the dowel, and it prevents the head from sliding sideways. So when they're just riding around, the actress on the horse, riding around, the horse does not turn its head until, of course, they take a close-up shot. Then they just pull out the pin, and then they can do those probably from underneath. Somebody can just reach in and turn the head should they want to, or they could, do it from here. There's also going to be an access point near the base of the neck of the skull, so we can get our hand in there and manipulate the snout. So all these options are there. This little piece here, for those who might wonder, is that there is a piece of non-stretch ribbon, very strong shoelace actually, that has a loop at the end, and it connects to this super fat screw eye to prevent the head from ever falling forward in the angle. Even though it's supported by this, I was afraid it might over time loosen up. So as an extra precaution, there's this piece that goes down and stretches over this thing. And because I was again paranoid about the wood splitting, I made a precaution of adding again more string and glue, just to prevent the wood from ever opening up. So these are all little things you can do, and for those who have not seen it before, this is a little pouch I made for the head controls for the animatronic eyes, to hold them in place so they don't fall down and pull on themselves and then rip out like they have done 3 times already. So, piece of advice for those who make animatronic eyes: I don't make them myself, I ordered them. It was a nightmare, still is. It's not solved yet. I will need to teach myself from watching videos how to do soldering, electronic soldering, because I can't keep hiring someone who's right now on vacation for Christmas, so I won't be able to hire him again for this, so I have to do it myself. But piece of advice: if you make animatronics of any kind of electronics, make sure your cables are strong. Put a second kind of casing on top so that it will prevent the soldering from breaking off or ripping itself out, or even the fine wires themselves from ripping out. Use fatter calibers of wires whenever possible, and put some kind of sleeve on top of it so that it takes most of the stress out. If you really have to, put some kind of connector that will unhook itself instead of the wire breaking. That's probably even better. So I know about these, I just don't know how to make them myself. So just consider that instead of causing problems to your customers. I'm not going to name any names. I did tell the guy already all these things, in the hopes that he's going to improve his product, but it was quite frustrating. It still is. I'm a month late on this project, mostly because of those technical issues on those animatronic eyes that I bought, but for my customer. But it's the last time I work with these things. Anyways, whether it's from this supplier or another, I want to focus on simpler things, more mechanical approaches, not electronics, no batteries to deal with, and certainly no cables that would break. So I'm just deviating right now. So this is what I wanted to share. Oh, I forgot. So this is one sheet of pattern foam on top of the armature, and it's a very limited armature. It's one silhouette at the bottom, not quite exactly all the way down, because I wasn't sure how deep I needed to leave the torso. And I found out, because there's about 2.5 inches of foam here past, downwards of the armature, it was a bit wobbly. It kept on, changing shape a little bit when it was resting on the floor. So I just doubled the foam in that area. The foam is firm enough at 2 layers of it with the contact cement to hold that shape better. I also had to double the number of connection points of fabric between the foam and the pipes. How do I connect the foam and the pipe? Simple. I just make a square or a rectangle piece of non-stretch fabric, preferably, and I use contact cement on both the foam and the fabric. Let them cure and then snap them together, really apply pressure, and it really holds these things in place. But at 4 points of connection that were planned, Now I doubled that. It's actually more than double. So, and everywhere there's an area of possible stress, like where two pieces of foam meet at the bottom or at an extremity, I put an extra patch just in case. So there's not going to be anything that's going to rip out or change its shape if I don't want it to. This large opening is for where the neck is, so I put a double wire armature there inside. It's 16 gauge wire of galvanized steel. I just put 2 loops of it, and I connected them together, of course, first. Then I put the contact cement on the foam. Then I put some more on top of the wire, and then on the fabric. And then the fabric was wrapped over the edge. So it's I would call it at least a triple protection against distortions, against also the pressure of the head when it's fully installed. This thing is heavy, so when it rests like this, I don't want it to rip the fabric or anything. So these 2 layers, these two loops of wire, plus the contact cement, plus the fabric, plus the other fabric that's going to be on top, which is polar fleece. I mean, all of this will amount to something pretty strong. So better paranoid than sorry. As I know I say that a lot, but it's served me well over the years. So I recommend it for you as well. Thank you for watching.